There are so many talented kids out there. We forget that it really takes time to understand and, in particular, have the wisdom to produce anything. It's not an automatic thing at all. We, as parents, sometimes expect too much. But if we're paying attention in our own children, we can really see where we kind of lack in areas. And whether this is not a negative thing, this is a reality because as human beings, we're just not perfect. None of us walk in perfection in every area of our life. There are areas that are very perfect or very mature is probably a more palatable word to use, very mature. We have enough experience in that area, in those particular areas where we kind of know what to expect. There aren't very many surprises in that particular area of life. It could be that you're very disciplined, and here comes some key words, and obedient when it comes to working out or when it comes to investing your money. But when it comes down to holding your temper and treating people with love or respect, you might be lacking in that area. Or maybe you're excellent in that area, but when it comes down to collaboration, you're not very good. Or maybe you're great in that area, but when it comes down to, anything, working on a car, I don't know, budgeting. So that's another reason why we have to have perfect, or mature relationships with other people who are mature in other areas. But to experience that maturity in that area purely, you have to be willing to welcome other people with other maturity levels in other areas. The reality that I've noticed in my life to my kids, my grandkids, my brothers and sisters around the world, those who consider me a teacher, is that people don't necessarily see the best in you, or you have not necessarily developed the best in you so that people can see where you are mature and can garner that respectability or that love. Now, I want to come back to that in a minute. So, respectability and love creates an environment where multiple people can thrive in the community being an environment with all these different maturity levels coming out of all these different people, where everyone is thriving. What I've noticed in my own life, in my own testimony, is that people may not have the respectability in me as it pertains to certain other areas where I feel like I'm mature. It could be I haven't proven myself. It could be something on their end. Maybe there isn't a certain amount of appreciation. It could be anything. But you can't deal with those things because, strike that, you can't deal with those things unless you're willing to be honest with yourself about where you're mature and where you're not mature. This is necessary to bring forth anything after its kind or after his kind. You have to know who you are. You have to know where your strengths are and what your weaknesses are to multiply who you are. You can go through life not thinking about it. You can get a job, You can get around average folks. You can be an average person. Or you can get around exceptional people and you can mimic what they do and that sort of thing. But if you're doing it with wisdom and you're doing it on purpose over and over again, you might want to find out, not even might, you have to want to find out about yourself and what you're good at. It's going to open up a couple of things for you. Number one, it's going to build confidence in you so that you don't cast away your confidence in the midst of very trying times, because we all go through trying times. But you can't cast away your confidence in you and who God made you. Your talent is tied to who God made you. Your talent has value. Everything that God created after Genesis chapter 1, verse 10, he created with seed. The challenge with the human being is understanding what your seed. Of course you're a human being. Of course you're a spirit being. But what is your seed? What is your multiplication? What is your his kind? What is your talent? Who are you? What seed are you yielding beyond being a human being? Where are you bringing value to your relationships? Who are you? What do you do? How do you do it? Where deals with territory, and that is immaterial for this conversation. But right now we're dealing with the what is your seed and who are you? I am primarily a teacher of spiritual truths to my core. That is my seed. That is part of what I do. I bring this technology into, or this way of thinking and way of being, into everything I involve myself with. Teacher of spiritual truths. What is your seed? So that you get an idea of what I mean, I want to read these things to you from now with that information in your mind and see how it's relevant or how you can find yourself. We're going to go back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 10. I think I'm going to be doing a lot of moving around in creating the Genesis series. And again, this is not so much of a Bible study as it is a discovery in Genesis. In this section of Genesis, we might get into more of a Bible study as it pertains to studying the walk of some of the characters later on in Genesis. But for right now, these are the basics before you get into Genesis chapter 2. After everything, the basics have been covered as far as creation goes. This is the spiritual walk. If you don't know what I mean by the spiritual walk, it means all these things are being discussed in heaven. And then they will manifest themselves. And then the man will be responsible for the naming of these things. And then his wife will be revealed to him as well. Then they will start to make spiritual decisions and make physical moves and that sort of thing. But let's get back to the point. Genesis chapter 1, verse 10 says, "And God called the dry earth and the gathering together of the waters called he seas, and God saw that good." earth, seas, God saw it and said it was good. Verse 11, and God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind. Let me say that one more time. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed in itself upon the earth, and it was so. This is the first time and the last time that he uses the combination, or strike that, not the last time, but this is the first time in Genesis he says bring forth. What's the significance of that? Not much, but it does have some significance. The word means to sprout, which means that the seed was already in the earth to sprout. Your talent is already in you to sprout. What you're made for is already in you to sprout. To bring forth is to sprout. Now, here's the challenge. In our society today in 2024, if it doesn't happen fast, people will eat their seed. Because if it doesn't grow quickly, it's like it's never going to happen. To some, this is not true for everyone, but when you watch the internet and some of the things you see on the internet, you believe that some of these things are automatic. When in truth, a lot of what you see, that earth has already been prepared. And I like to use business professionals as an example. Someone like a Mark Zuckerberg or a Jeff Bezos. These people had success, Elon Musk. These people had successful families. Before they became billionaires. They had multi-million-dollar families. They are products of a legacy. It took time to create an Elon Musk. It took time to create a Mark Zuckerberg. Because, look, most of you are looking at Tesla or Facebook. It's never about the project. It's always about the relationships. If you had the start mentally, spiritually, family-wise, that they had, it's possible that you would be them. But you are you. And whether we like it or not, it takes time to bring forth and sprout. There has to be an appreciation for process. To bring forth after his kind. You have to discover who you are. Now, are there quote unquote miracles? Absolutely. But I'm reading to you in Genesis chapter 1, verse 11, the process of bringing forth. Now I'm going to read on, and I want you to hear the difference, because I understand that, we like to read fast. and a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people don't like to study. which is kind of like reading slow. Genesis chapter 1 verse 11 says, "And God said, let." Now, for some odd reason, I scratched out let and put the word to. I just didn't make the reference point of why I did it, but I get it. Because God speaks to the earth and the water, remember? And the light and the darkness, which grows what's in the earth. Your soul, your spirit. When we read earth, we forget that earth has everything in it to germinate and bring forth. Or bring forth and germinate. God created every seed to be brought forth. In you is seed to be brought forth, not just your humanity, but your talent, your skill. Where we need improvement on is the willingness to not read, but to study who we are and what we are. I'm starting with the basics here because my daughter told me to do it this way. So I'm slowing down everything and I'm giving you the basics. That means when you wake up and you don't have peace, part of why you don't have peace is because you don't know what, maybe because you don't know what you're bringing forth. You're unfamiliar with what's in your earth. Are you getting enough light? Are you getting enough water? In other words, are you around people who have enough spirit in them that is concerned about helping you bring forth, and are you open to the opportunity to bring forth the seed that's already planted in your earth? Are you focused on bringing forth and not avoiding who you are? Now, that's easy to do because what you do to avoid is instead of growing up, you wake up and you immediately start avoiding the seed that is planted in you. Some of you might be saying, Paul, how did you get all of this out of Genesis 11? Genesis 1, chapter 11. I didn't. I've read the Bible over and over again, so I'm pulling from the whole Bible as I explain this. So no, it didn't. You don't get this by reading one verse. You get this by digging deep into who you are and digging deep into who God is, which is kind of like the same thing because you are a child of God. And you recognize that your earth has seed on the inside. In other words, when God created you out of the earth, he brought you out with seed in you to recreate. And it's not just babies. It's to create a life that is fruitful. Be fruitful and multiply. So let's read on. In Genesis 1, chapter 1, verse 11, and God said, to the earth. And hopefully you understand what the earth is. The earth is you. God said to you, bring forth grass. Now in this case, the grass he's speaking to, the herb yielding seed. So he named it the grass, bring forth or sprout, the herb yielding seed. He named it, told you what it does. It yields seed. What kind of seed? Herbs. He didn't say what kind of herb it was. But I think in general you understand that if it's one herb, it's probably all herbs. The fruit tree yielding fruit. So the tree has fruit inside the tree, yields fruit, which inside the fruit yields seed. In other words, the tree brings forth the fruit from the seed that's already inside the tree. Every tree yields the fruit of what it is. Now maybe you don't understand the tree, and maybe we can get into that because I've gone over again. Gosh darn it. I got to get more disciplined about keeping this around 20 minutes. Listen, I just want you to understand what the kingdom is, how the kingdom works, how the kingdom of God works. I'm explaining the kingdom of God to you, whether you know it or not, so that you can bring forth and usher in the kingdom of heaven. It's really quite a beautiful scene. CashApp $TheMrPaulDozier. If you want to support the ministry, or Zelle, paulcdozier@gmail.com. And thank you for taking the journey with me. God bless you.